All right, we're actually live now. All right. Hello. So let's give a second for people to start joining. We'll give like a minute and let people connect. Then we will get started. All right. I see four people joined already. So while we're waiting for the rest to connect, I'm just going to give a shout out to everyone that has connected already. Hello, everyone. As you join, please go ahead and signal to let us know that you can hear us, just so we are not talking to ourselves. Please use that comment section and drop a signal to let us know if you can hear us. Thank you for joining. Please confirm if you can hear us.
Hello, everyone. Let us
Hi.
know.
Yeah, so I see 9 people connected. Please confirm if you can hear us. Thank you for joining. As you join, please go ahead and share so that others will also connect. We don't want people to miss out on this amazing opportunity. So please go ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. As you all can see, I have an amazing guest today, and I'm so excited. I know that you all, especially those from Being Agile community, you all must be really excited and you will not want to miss out on this opportunity. So if you know of anyone that is supposed to be here but are not here yet, please remind them. We want to leverage this opportunity to the best of our ability. Thank you for joining. I see 20 people connected. So while we getting started, I would just like to us to recognize Bob Gallen. So as you all may already know, especially those on the Being Agile community side, Bob is one of the finest in the Agile space. He has written many books, which the latest is Badass Agile. We will get to learn more about that as we go. And I'm so honored to have Bob here today. So Bob is really here to serve. So I reached out to him and asked if he would like to, give back to the community of practice on the Being Agile side, and he was very open to it, and that's just everything. So without further ado, I am just gonna give the mic to Bob to, introduce himself, and then we will get started. Again, Bob, I'm so honored to have you. So, would you please go ahead and tell us about yourself and just give us a summary of what your life was like pre-Agile?
Okay, so Karen, first, it's my honor to be here and to give back to the community. So everyone, thank you for connecting. If you have any questions for later on, we'll have some time for Q&A, I think. But it's my honor and my privilege to be able to talk to to talk to you and to talk to your community. How did pre-agile, my life pre-agile? I'll give you a synopsis pre-agile. So I grew up on a farm in central Pennsylvania, in Amish country. So I'm a farm boy, a dairy farm. And I was working very young. I was working, I don't know, most farmers, their children start working on the farm, at least mine. We were relatively poor. So I was milking cows when I was like 6 or 7, and cows were much larger than me. So grew up in a farm, uh, uh, went to high school there, then went into the military. I didn't think that I was ready for university right after high school. So I went into the army. This was right after Vietnam, so that'll tell people my age to some degree. So I went into the army, volunteered. I went to Thailand. I went to the Philippines. I was in the States. I was in Maryland Station. And then after school, I got the GI Bill. Went to school, computer science. I got a degree in computer science. My first job out of school, this was all pre-agile. This was
Yeah.
this was in the heat of waterfall, everyone.
Mhm.
So I worked at Sperry Univac. If anyone's ever heard of Univac computers or the mainframes,
Mhm.
so I was actually a developer. I developed in assembler code for mainframes for a number of years, and then I went into distributed systems like workstations, Sun systems, microcomputers, and then desktops and things like that. I was always then I started leading. So my first leadership role was in around 84, 85, 1984 or
Wow.
5. I came in and my boss had put on my chair an org chart, and I was like, and I was in the org chart, and I had people like reporting to me, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"What's this?" And he's like, "I just promoted you. This is your team."
Oh,
with no
wow.
and he's like, go forth and build great things. So there was no instruction, uh, and he didn't ask me if I wanted to do it. So I started doing leadership then and learning leadership. I was an early adopter of Agile. Around the late 90s, I discovered Agile and started using it. At that time, I was a pretty senior leader, like a director of large teams and things. So that was my pre-Agile journey. And then how I discovered Agile. I've always been an experimenter, as a leader, looking for new ways of working and trying to inspire teams. And I have an affinity to people. So Agile really aligned very well with my people leadership affinity. And the rest is history.
Wow, amazing. That's a beautiful history. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
You're welcome.
So, Tim, you all know as we do it here, as we have this conversation, this is a free platform where everyone is open to share your thoughts using that comment section, regardless of whatever you have in mind. As long as you keep it respectful, no one is judging you. So, as we go through our conversation here, if you have questions, please queue them up, on that comment section. At the end, we will reserve some time to take your questions to the best of our ability, really trying to stay on the agenda. All right. Bob, I'm just curious. You've already told us when and how your agile journey started. So I just want to hear what after your manager trusted you to lead, and then you discovered agile in the early 90s. I'm curious to know, when was your first agile role? When did you have that first agile role? And just tell us a little bit about that.
So my journey, my Agile discovery was more as a leader. And then I started, acting in roles like Scrum Master or coach. Like back then, I was probably a coach, but I didn't realize I was a coach because there
Yeah.
wasn't anything like that. So I was a leader trying to change the ways of working. So in waterfall, and not that there's waterfall is worse than agile or better, it's just a different style. So I was looking for better ways to delight customers and better ways to be humane with teams. If you've ever worked in waterfall, I was talking to someone the other day, and there was the term death march. And if anyone's ever done, any Ed Jordan wrote a book called Death March, and a death march was this undoable project, that people would just march along and then fail
Mhm.
at the end, and get chastised or fired.
Yeah.
Waterfall was pretty inhumane. It was not a good way to work. It was not good for people, and it actually wasn't good for results, if your results were trying to tie it to the customer. So I was always looking for better ways. So for me as a leader, when I discovered Scrum, I read that there was an early white paper at Scrum that was delivered at a conference in '96 by Schwaber and Sutherland.
Mhm.
And I actually was attending that conference. It was an OOPS conference. And I heard them describe their experience. And this was their early experiment. This was their first company experience with Scrum. And they were writing it up. And they were inspired by a paper by two gentlemen in Japan. And it was very early. And I remember getting very excited about these ideas of stand ups and self directed teams. I
Mhm.
really wasn't triggered on Scrum, I was triggered on the dynamic. So I brought that back. So my first experience was, maybe call it being an agile evangelist, and really trying to bring some of those ideas back to my team. At the time, maybe, not that numbers matter, but I probably had 80 people reporting to me in different
Wow.
countries. And so we started practicing. It wasn't, so we didn't install Scrum.
Mhm.
We started practicing with some of the ideas from Scrum and Agile. And then XP came. The next epiphany for me was Extreme Programming surfaced a few years later. And that was the engineering practice side. So it was this wonderful synergy between Scrum as the wrapper and then XP practices as the development practices underneath it. And that really started my journey, the enthusiasm I had. And then as I was leading teams, I started practicing in roles and things like that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So, team, as you may already know, our topic for today is we are looking to explore or deep dive on why Agile fail in large enterprises. But again, we're not going to go all negative on on why Agile fail in large enterprises. We're going to be able to find the balance. So, um, Now, I am just curious. I would like Bob to talk to us about agile transformation has really helped many organizations in the enhancement of their product quality. That is for a fact because it's been proven. According to the State of Agile report, the 2020 version that was just recently released, 80% of participants use Agile as their predominant working approach. Even though 51%, again, according to that report, are somewhat satisfied, only 20% are very satisfied with the agile transformation. Now, these most of the dissatisfaction has been linked to large enterprises. So I'm just curious to know what's your opinion on that. Why is it so?
I mean, I don't know if I have the definitive answer, but I have some thoughts around it. I think of Agile. We get all excited about Agile, um, and we get all enthusiastic as Agile proponents, as Agile coaches, as Agile practitioners. But the harsh reality, and I'm not being negative, everyone, but the harsh reality is Agile. Moving to an Agile mindset is very disruptive, I think, to traditional ways of working. And I think then, so to a small company, it's disruptive. You're bringing in different ways of working. You're moving from telling the teams what to do, the teams are order takers, to now the teams are empowered we're co-creating products together. In waterfall, customers wait at the end for wonderful things. They're at the end of the pipeline looking for a present coming down the pipeline to them, and in Agile, we're asking them not to do that, but to ask them to participate all along the way. So I think Agile is disruptive to the status quo. It's a disruptive change to the way people have been working. Um, and I'm not saying that's bad, it's just the reality. I think as organizations get larger, there's more and more status quo. There's more and more tension. There's more and more hierarchy. So why are enterprises more challenging? Well, they have more layers. They have more leadership layers. They might have more regulatory concerns depending on the business domain. They have more process limits. They have more. The PMO has ways of working, and people don't want to change. And I just think it's a challenge in those domains. I do think a lot of people now, that's the challenge landscape. We're moving from your current way of working to Agile, and it's a really disruptive model. I think one of the challenges, again, it gets harder at scale at the enterprise level. Is are there guides? Are there sufficiently skilled guides or coaches to help those organizations move from A to B? And I think that's one of the dilemmas right now. Is I don't know if there's a lot of really skilled coaches
Mhm.
who are skilled and experienced enough, not just certifications, but are they skilled enough to help guide in those really complex organizations? Part of it is meeting those organizations where they are, not where you want them to be, but actually where they are, and then partner with those organizations, be patient, guide them, look for small wins and things like that. Again, everything is easier at smaller scale, and then as we get, I think it's exponentially harder. So it's the nature of Agile is this change, and then how do we navigate that? I think at scale, another thing is people are looking for silver bullets. They're looking for in a lot of enterprises. I do a lot of leadership coaching, and a lot of leaders, and this is unfortunate. They're not bad leaders, but they're myopic. They're looking for silver bullets. If I can install safe, if I
Yeah.
can buy safe and install safe, it'll move my organization to Agile in a year. Well, that's not the way it works. You don't install change. You transform to change, and it might not be predictable. I mean, I joke with those leaders sometimes. Is they want a date to when their Agile transformation is done, and
Yeah.
I just look at them and I laugh. I'm like, it's not. You're not. It's like any change, improvement, continuous improvement and change.
Mhm.
When are you done with that? When am I done being a better coach? I'm never done.
Never.
So I can always learn something more, and it's the same thing. Now think about that. That's me. What about your complex organization? And you need to move. You want to move that as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. So if an organization has to succeed in their agile journey, given everything you have explained, what are the expectations of the different, categories of stakeholders? That is leadership, middle management, core development team, and the rest. So, what exactly are the expectations of these different categories of stakeholders?
I think one of the keys is to, I often talk about organizations. I do this quite often with clients and talking to the coaches. I talk about three levels of organizational change or organizational transformation to Agile. And I talk, the bottom level is the teams, the people doing the work. Uh, so anyone doing the work is the bottom level of the pyramid, if you will. And then I go to the very top and I talk about senior leadership, executive leadership. And then everything in the middle is what I would call middle management, or the middle of the sandwich, or the middle of the pyramid. And that's not just managers. That could be directors.
Mhm.
It could also be organizations like PMOs.
Mhm.
To me, the PMO would fit in there. Or if there's a regulatory, a certification arm, or a community of practice, or a lean agile center of excellence. That
Yeah.
to me would be in the middle. Um, I think there's not a key for all of them. I think that the real key is they all need to be moving together. Very often organizations look teamward and say all of our energy and all of the transformational change is a team responsibility. But what happens is the middle and the senior don't change with the teams. They're sort
Hmm.
of dictating downward at the team.
Hmm.
They want the organization to be agile, but it's not that they're unwilling. They just don't recognize that it's a holistic transformation. It's not just a process installation. Agile is a mindset change rather than a process
Yeah.
installation. So they're not taking that ownership. So I think the key for all of them is to move together. Maybe not at the same
Wow.
rate, but executives need to be becoming agile themselves at the same rate that the middle management needs to be moving, at the same rate or close to that the teams are moving. There needs to be synergy between them. Another way of saying it is I've never seen a grassroots agile, like just the teams going
Mhm.
agile. I, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've never seen a team survive without the upper two levels supporting them and integrate with them. The team level can become agile for a few years, but eventually they cannot sustain their momentum because they need the support of the rest of the organization.
Mhm.
So it's not, I think the expectation is we're in it together. It's not a process installation. Like waterfall was a process installation.
Yeah.
Agile to me is a cultural transformation, a different way of doing the work that's going to affect every silo in the company. So let's recognize that, that's aligned to that, and let's start coaching and training and moving together.
Wow.
Another thing, one more thing, Karen, that I like to
Yeah.
see is
Mhm.
instead of having the teams go first, if I can influence the leaders, I try to ask them to go first. So instead of it be a team first strategy, I'd prefer that the leaders go first, and they set the tone. They lead the way, if you will. So maybe one of the first training, instead of training Scrum teams, why don't we train the leaders and what it
Yeah.
looks like to become an effective leader, so they can actually, I guess the word is lead. They can lead the initiative rather than, sort of putting the pressure on the team.
Amazing. I totally agree with you on that. So I just have a follow-up question. So according to the State of Agile Coaching Report, the 2020 version that was released earlier this year, it stated that coaches face a lot of resistance or issues around the cultural aspect that you're mentioning. That is the key to successfully transform into an agile environment. And this resistance coming more from leadership. So I just want to know, what is the impact of coaches for everything that you explained to be successful?
I mean, I think one of the things, and I'm sort of amplifying the word that you used as,
Mhm.
it's we're getting resistance.
Mhm.
I think one of the challenges sometimes is maybe the wrong people are coaching up or coaching leaders.
Mhm.
One aspect of that is if I look at a leader and I have in my mind they're resisting me, or if I have in my mind they're a resistor or they're an impediment, I may not say it to them. I may smile at them. I may
Yeah,
shake their hand. I may speak
true.
really nice words to them. But in my head, I'm saying, I'm thinking that they'll never get it. They
Mhm.
couldn't spell agile if I helped them spell agile.
Yeah.
Then I'm not meeting them with respect. I'm not meeting them where they are. And I'm wondering if that affects the coaching relationship, because do they sense that? Do they sense? And my answer is yes. So I think coaches have to really change themselves in order to be effective with leaders. We need to look in the mirror first. Are we walking our talk? For example, as a leader, I've had agile coaches come up to me and coach me, and they had no idea what it was like to walk in my shoes. They had no idea what pressure I was under. They didn't even bother to ask me. They just said, "You're not agile, or you need to do you need." Have you read the Scrum Guide, Bob? It, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's like they were myopically, or they were not very skillfully coaching me as a leader. They
Mhm.
had no empathy. They did not meet me where I was. They didn't meet me with respect. They didn't meet me with curiosity. And those things in the book, in my coaching book, I talk a lot about the first thing for a coach is to coach themselves first. I think so. Check yourself. How are you showing up every day? How are you coaching leaders? Are you walking your talk as a coach? And I actually think if coaches take an inside out view, there'll be more effective coaches at all levels, including leadership. And you don't use terms to marginalize people.
Yeah.
Like people are not resistors. They may not know. They're
Hmm.
people. And our job is not to categorize them. Our job is to help them take a journey if they're willing to take the journey. I mean, one of
Amazing.
the things we can do as a coach is determine if they're ready. And if they're not ready, that's fine. Go coach someone else. Don't force. In 20 plus years, Karen, I've never made anyone be agile. Does that make sense? Right? I've never walked into a room, virtual or physical, and shook my magic agile coaching stick and had anyone go, "Oh my God, I've been
Hmm.
doing it all wrong. Now
Yeah.
I'm agile." Right? It doesn't. People have
Hmm.
to change themselves.
Hmm.
So I actually don't. I think there's a lot of underskilled coaches that are trying to coach up, getting frustrated, and then it's creating negative results with leaders.
Amazing. That's just awesome. So, what I mean, I totally agree with everything you've said. I just want to add that one thing that I try to practice and I am really intentional about when I start having that feeling of, okay, why is this person not getting it? Is I speak to myself to be patient. I remind myself of how important it is to practice not only patience, because I don't think patience has worked for me, great patience, and that usually helps me. Awesome. So, what is the future of Agile in the next 10 years? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, I'm going to lean into not talk about tools. I think Jira will take over the known universe.
Yeah.
Uh, Safe, everyone will be using Safe.
Hope.
So there's a tools and a framework side of things. I'm going to push that off to the side. Uh,
Okay.
I Not that it's not important, but
Mhm.
but I actually think some things I'm going to lean into mindset. So I hope that certifications are less important than real experience. Um, in
Mm.
particularly in areas like there's a lot of folks who are trying to collect letters after their name, and I would rather they, yes, do that, but then really focus on gaining experience. For example, finding a coach or coaches, finding a mentor, coaching, being coached and coaching other people, getting involved in the community. Do something like you're doing.
Mhm.
You're creating a brand. You're learning. You're serving the community.
Mhm.
So do things like that. So I hope one trend in the next 10 years is more people get that that experience and mindset trumps letters. Not that letters aren't important. Another
Yeah.
thing is I hope coaches start developing. I think that in agile coaching right now, there's a lot of mediocrity. Not bad people, but mediocre. They don't really know what coaching is.
Mhm.
Uh, I subscribe to a model called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, and I could be I could be learning for the next. I've been doing it for 20, 25 years. I can be doing it for another 20 years, and I still have room to grow. So it's not something you acquire in a few years. It's something that we continually refine. So my hope is that we start increasing the depth and breadth and the, sort of the awareness and the mindset of agile coaches, that it's not just a title, that it's a continual state of practice and competency and skills and walking our talk. And the reason I want to project, I hope that happens on a trajectory, is I think that'll be a difference maker in having agile successes. So your statistics, what, 20% are very satisfied? I think if we increase the skill out there in guiding organizations forward, that's called in coaching, I think we'll increase those numbers drastically, that we could really make a difference in the world of work.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see roles become bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the, so I encounter a lot of Scrum Masters, and they ask the question, how do I become an Agile coach? And it frustrates me when I hear that, because
Mm-hmm.
when I look at a Scrum Master, I see an Agile coach. For decades, whenever I've seen from the beginning of Scrum. Now, I don't mean that they have Agile coaching on their business card or
Yeah.
necessarily on their job title,
Mm-hmm.
but from a core competencies perspective, from a skill set perspective, from an empowerment and a responsibility to coach others in the organization, I see Scrum Masters having that responsibility and needing to grow their skills over time. So product owners, the same thing. So I see a lot of contained Scrum Masters and contained, they're like, I'm a Scrum Master, I can't coach, or I'm a product owner, I can't do this. And I'd like to see more expansion
Mm-hmm.
of the limits of those roles. So it's more so, I think, mindset shifts that I'm hoping, and I'd love to. I think that is happening over the next 10 years. Leaders as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I see very few agile leaders in the world that they really understand what agile leadership is all about. And now that's starting to change a little bit organizationally, and I'd love to see that expand. So maybe expansion, leadership, coaching, Scrum Masters, product owners, being more than we think it is, and then really continuously growing ourselves.
Wow, that is amazing. So, I mean, everything I'm hearing you say is the future of Agile is in our hands to define that as
Well, and I
Agile
think let me
practitioners.
be clear too. I think there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a separation. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you want to have work, if you want to have
Mm-hmm.
jobs,
Yeah.
I don't think just status quo Scrum Masters. So I think the world of it's going to separate,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be folks who I'm just a Scrum Master. That's what I look at. I think those job opportunities will reduce.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm a
Okay.
mediocre coach, I think that will reduce. So if you really want, it's not just do you want to change the world of work, but if you
Mm-hmm.
want to have work yourself, I think we have to lean into excellence, is what I'm saying. Right?
Beautiful.
We have to lean into growth,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because mediocrity is not it. It's not driving results. It's
Mm-mm.
not agile. So we have to be part of that. Right?
Yeah.
We have to be part of that trend.
I mean, I've heard so many times people have reached out to me, and because my passion is in the area of helping minorities to get into the space, if they are really passionate about it, if they're hungry, people have reached out and then they are weary and saying, "Oh, I have been a Scrum Master for 3, 4 years, but yet I'm struggling to have a job." I'm like, okay, share with me your background. And then they're telling me they have 3 different certifications. They have a certification from PSM, they have from Scrum.org, they have a certification from Scrum Alliance, they have a certification from Scrum Inc. I'm like, okay, have you actually worked or held any role as a Scrum Master in the past? No. But already they think that they are Scrum Masters. And that is where I see a problem because I mean, I watched a show that was hosted by Jeff Sutherland. I think that was 3 weeks ago. And he mentioned that having that certification is just 20%
Yep.
of actually being a good Scrum Master. The remaining 70% is what you don't know, which is why you don't have that job yet. And that is what comes with the mentoring you're talking about. You know, getting a mentor to me is not supposed to be optional if you want to be good in this. Joining a community of practice that are really reflecting the values of being an agile practitioner to me is not optional. I've really never seen anyone succeed as an island in this space, So I just really wanted to support that point and to emphasize on how important that is, especially for our viewers. All right. So is the job market for Scrum Masters going to shrink or expand? What's your thoughts on that?
I think the job market, I'm going to use our discussion so far. I think the job market for certification Scrum Masters, people who just get the letters, people who don't have the experience,
Yeah.
or people who don't have the mindset, meaning they're not out there, you know, they're looking for a job, but they're not like going to, do you know how many meetup groups there are right now? There are so many meetup groups. There's so
Yes.
many learning opportunities to grow yourself, but they don't avail themselves of that. They're just looking to be. I think that job market is going to shrink. I think it's going to shrink quite quickly over time. I think the job market for good Scrum Masters is going to expand. And
Wow.
what I mean, it's not perfect, but good Scrum Masters, that mindset that we're talking about, the Scrum Masters that will have, it's not just going to expand. I think there's going to be competition for those folks because leaders will start understanding what good looks like. And they'll start they'll self-select out of the mediocre Scrum Masters. And the same thing would happen to coaches. I'm not picking on Scrum Masters. Same thing would happen for product owners or any agile practitioners. It's sort of going to be the drive to the bottom and then the drive to the top. And it's really going to be experience and skills. I would even say soft skills, Karen, like attitude, like someone who has like the right attitude, a positive, they bring positivity to the job. They bring, they bring curiosity to the job, just things like that. My daughter pivoted from social work to Scrum Master.
Oh,
She got
wow.
it. She spent 15 years in child social work. She had a leadership role in a New York social work firm. She was doing organizational development and training, but social worker. She's not a technologist. I twisted her arm a little bit to try to pivot her into Agile, and she made the pivot into Agile. But the differentiator, and she got a job without any experience. Now, it wasn't easy. She had to show perseverance. She had to transition her stories from social work to Agile stories. She had to be very persistent and dogged, but she got a role, and she was successful. And she couldn't spell technology. In fact, I remember she did a retrospective or a training in her first team, and she's like, "Dad, these people are very quiet. Social workers are very vocal." She's like, "But my development teams don't talk." She says, "Do they hate me?" And I was like, "Honey, welcome to my space. These are my people. They're not they're engineers are not the most
Yeah.
extroverted people in the world." And
No.
she's like, "Oh, so it might be okay." I'm like, "Yeah, it might be fine. You don't have to worry." But my point is, she had no reference, and she's been building her reference. But what got her the role, and is what continuing to grow her. She just switched roles. Is the intangibles? They're incredibly important. So it's like that attitude and aptitude and learning and enthusiasm. Those are the things that I think are going to be expanding.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that insight. So I just like to add that, usually people would say that based on what I do, I talk to people every day that are looking to get into this space. So they will be like, it's so difficult to get a Scrum job, that it's a lie. This thing is a scam. It doesn't exist. I'm like, I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, even with the current layoffs, just go on LinkedIn alone. Look up Scrum Master jobs on LinkedIn. Just in USA today, you would see over 153,000 openings. What is really difficult is getting good Scrum Masters. They want Scrum Masters in this space, but they are just struggling to find good Scrum Masters. You can have anything in your resume, but when you go there and present yourself, they can tell if you're just bluffing or you just read some book or you've not had any experience. So if you want to stand out, you have to do those things so that you are recognizable as someone standing out, and you will not find it hard to get that job that you're looking for. All right. So my next question is, so again, you've already touched on this point. Some people, there've been this conversation or this debate in this community. Some people saying Scrum Master Agile, coach are the same people. Some say, oh, they are not the same people, or they're not the same role. So I just want to hear your opinion. I know you already touched on that. So what is the difference, in your opinion, between an agile coach and a scrum master? There are really many arguments about this.
I don't. I look at it as an so me personally, and I'm not referencing the Scrum Guide.
Hmm.
This is my view in my head.
Hmm.
I look at them as being an evolutionary path. To me, a Scrum Master is an entry level leadership role in Scrum teams. It's a servant leadership role. It's the role is described in the Scrum Guide,
Yeah.
and part of that role definition in the Scrum Guide is coaching, and not just coaching the team, but coaching the organization. There's a
Hmm.
responsibility outlined that there's organizational change dynamics as part of the Scrum Master role.
Hmm.
Now, I don't think Scrum Masters come out of a CSM class or a certification class ready, right? There's a misnomer that, oh, I take a class and then I can be a Scrum Master. I don't think the classes ready you for the real world job. It's a starting point, and then it would be nice if you had a mentor, and then if you were paired with someone as you grew. My
Yeah.
daughter in her first job, they didn't dump 5 teams on her. They gave her one team. They
Yeah.
gave her a mentor. Uh,
Wow.
in like so someone paired with her for a while,
Hmm.
then she took over the team, then they gave her a second team, and this was over several months. So they looked at the role as being a serious, and they rolled it. They evolved it, and they
Hmm.
supported her, and I think that's required. Now at some point as a Scrum Master, you are actively coaching, and
Hmm.
I think at some point you then start, they could call you a coach. I could be a senior Scrum Master or a junior coach. I've seen those roles. So I think it's along the evolutionary path. Instead of talking about job descriptions
Hmm.
or hierarchies, what I would like to say is go back to there's something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. It's a
Hmm.
framework for coaching. And I think that Scrum Masters and Agile coaches should look at it and say, in order for me to coach, independent of what I call myself, there are competencies that I need to grow in. And if I grow those competencies, at some point I will evolve from Scrum. If I want to stay a Scrum Master, I'll just get stronger and stronger in my coaching.
Hmm.
And if I want to evolve into a coach, that it'll make more and more sense because I've evolved the skills. And the skills there's different skills or stances. Facilitation is one, teaching is one, mentoring is one, professional coaching is one. In the wheel, there's leadership is another one, leading by example, and then providing advice or consulting. And there's lean agile skills, there's
Hmm.
scaling skills. So there's a lot of competencies to it. What I would say is don't focus on the names,
Yeah.
right? Focus on growing your coaching competencies. If you really like coaching, if you like that activity, if you like serving others in that way, well, then just grow your competencies. And I think the org chart and the the promotions and the path will unfold for you. Um, but grow your skills. Scrum masters have less of those skills,
Hmm.
so that start growing them. And they're different skills. We were talking about coaching leaders.
Hmm.
That's a different skill set. It requires different competencies. So if I'm coaching a Scrum team as a Scrum master, I probably need to strengthen my facilitation competency. Does that make sense? To become
Yes.
stronger in facilitation, facilitating retrospectives. I may need to strengthen my lean agile practices because my daughter had to really focus on lean agile because she didn't have that background, and
Hmm.
focus there, and less on coaching, less on the coaching competency, or less on the providing advice. But what if I'm coaching leaders? Then I need to strengthen other competency areas. So it depends on my context, but I have a baseline to grow myself. I think Scrum Masters and coaching, there's a nice migration path to that, but I don't want to force it. Like,
Hmm.
for example, what if we have a Scrum Master who's a senior Scrum Master, has 10 years of experience, loves coaching teams, and they love being a Scrum Master? Is that
Yeah.
fine? And I would say, absolutely, go for it.
Hmm.
But also do what? Strengthen your coaching skills at a teamwork level. Continue to do that. Become a better and better facilitator over time. You don't have to become a coach. We should comp you at that. Or coaches. We could develop coaches, and there could be a team coach. There can be product. I've seen product level coaches, technology, developer level coaches, and then enterprise level coaches. So depending on what context you want.
Amazing. That is great. Thank you so much. So, for those who just recently joined, our topic for today is why Agile fails in large enterprises. So, you can always go back and watch after this whole live broadcast. And as we progress, if you have questions, please leverage this comment section and drop your questions there. We will address them as we wrap up this topic. So, the next question that I have for you, Bob, is what is, I know you've really covered that, in the last thing you just said regarding the difference between agile coaching and being a scrum master. So I'll just like you to add more context on what is your, just give us your best counsel for a scrum master who wishes to climb higher in this career ladder. I've heard you mention about the growth wheel, which is something that I treasure. And for those that are looking to get a copy of that, you can find that on Scrum Alliance. I think that's where I got mine. So, Bob, just tell us what will be your best counsel for a Scrum Master who wishes to climb higher in this career path?
It's going to sound odd, Karen, I think, but that's the wrong mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is just me, everyone, so you can take it with a grain of salt. But when I've had developers come to me and they want to, Bob, I want to become an architect. How
Mm-hmm.
quickly can I become an architect? Show me the game plan for architect.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. Or I'm like, just become a great developer. Architecture will unfold for you. If you're worrying about climbing the ladder, then you may
Mm-hmm.
be in the wrong company, or I'm probably the wrong leader for you.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about climbing ladders.
Yeah.
Worry about developing yourself, worrying about reflecting, and this applies to the Scrum Master. I mean, again, it's not a bad question, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
looking in the wrong direction, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. I'm like, look in yourself, ask yourself, are you developing? Be part of the Agile Coaching growth wheel is self-mastery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the middle of the wheel, and it's a focus on, am I coachable? Am I easy to work with? Am I really a servant leader, or am I just saying it? How am I walking myself? Am I operating with my team? Is my team delivering great value? Are the customers in our sprint reviews crying tears of joy? Are
Yeah.
we knocking it out of the, what are we, look, don't worry about the ladder. Worry about how you're showing up. Are we gaining the spirit of agility? Are you continuously growing? Are you curious? Are you passionate? Are you bringing it every day? I think if you do that, the ladder will unfold before you,
Yeah.
and you will grow the ladder. But if you just worry about the ladder, I think the ladder will like move out. So
Yeah.
not worry, but focus on you, and focusing on showing up and delivering. Agile is an opportunity. It's,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was always a wonderful blessing. I mean, if you ever worked in waterfall, it's like a prison camp. And Agile, if it's done well,
Yeah.
is a wonderful thing. It's not a perfect way of working, but it's a wonderful new way of working. And it's been given to you as a gift, but you have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
You actually can't, you have to change yourself, and not say you're changed, but actually show that you changed. So
Yeah.
it's a self-mastery, work on you. And I know if you do that, that opportunities will get involved in the community. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen folks, then they lose their job, the community comes and helps them find their next opportunity for them. It's not always easy, but
Mm-hmm.
but focus inside out before outside.
Yeah.
And I think the latter will take care of itself.
That's amazing. So, one thing that I usually say to my mentees is if you focus on adding value, you will not need to chase after success, because success will be the result of the value that you're delivering.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may
So,
be counterintuitive. It's like the universe actually gives us back
yeah.
the way we're showing up. But if I
Mhm.
show up and I'm just worried about climbing the ladder,
Mhm.
etc., it's not the right intentions.
You definitely fall though, because if you're worried about climbing the ladder when you've not even learned how to climb that ladder, there's no way you
Exactly.
make it up the ladder.
Exactly.
Remember what you said earlier regarding we have so many people, the wrong people, coaching leaders, which is why which is part of the problem that we are facing today. I think it still boils down to everything you just said. Instead of focusing on climbing and climbing, why not focus on doing it right? And then your result will speak for you.
Absolute excellence speaks for itself.
Yes,
Real
exactly.
experience, chops speak for themselves. Attitude, right?
Yeah.
Having that balance that speaks for itself.
Awesome. All right. So it's been amazing. So Bob, I know that like you already know, I mentioned this to you already. I'm a staunch follower of everything you do. You've inspired me so much with your work, the way you show up, your attitude. I mean, just being a servant in this agile space. So over the years, you have been one of your um you have been one of my greatest source of inspiration through your works,
Thank you.
especially the books that you have written, which the most recent, and I love the name the most before even the content in that book, Extraordinarily Badass Agile Coaching in 2022. So please tell us about this book.
So it really, I guess it relates to what we're talking about in that I wanted to raise, not that it's my job or I can raise the bar, but I saw so many, I did like you did, I did a LinkedIn search and looked for agile coaches and 200,000 popped up. And I'm like, there just can't be 200,000 great agile coaches in the universe. I'm like, everyone's an agile coach.
Yeah.
And I've seen this in my travels. Someone takes one class and they become an agile coach. I saw someone the other day on LinkedIn. They took a IC agile class and now I'm an agile coach.
Yeah.
And my argument would be you are, but you aren't. It's like, yes, maybe you are. That's fine. It's a starting point. But there's so much more to growing it. And that makes it exciting and that makes it fruitful and that makes it productive in environments and important. So the book is intended to raise the bar. It was sort of a response from me that I was seeing a lot of mediocrity. And it wasn't just about the coaches. We're not serving our clients. I saw so many agile coaches that were coaching underskilled and they weren't bad. They didn't know any better, most of them. And then the clients were getting frustrated. The people they were coaching were getting bad advice or they weren't getting any advice and they were getting frustrated and they were getting bad results. So it's not just about the coaching. It's part of the play to generate value, right? To generate great results. And so I in my own little way, I got fired up and I said, I want to write a book. Maybe it'll help. And that was the genesis of the book. I found the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. That's a framework uh, that folks, if you just search for Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, you can find some links to it on the Scrum Alliance site, etc. It's a developing target, so I felt that was a good framework to model. I talked about just provided a lot of advice, some canvases and things like that. It was a labor of love. Normally, what makes me write is seeing a problem. I don't write about something if I don't think people need it. In my mind, I'm trying to help our
Yeah.
community. So the
Wow.
book was driven from that. It's getting what matters more to me is it seems to be getting, it's coming up. It's not even been out for a year yet. And it seems to be making a difference, which really warms my heart. That's the whole reason I wrote it, was I
Yeah.
was hoping to make a difference in coaching. And I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback that it's really helping people rethink their coaching, but also to inspire them to start learning more.
Amazing. Well, so many I totally agree with you because I've been getting great feedback from being agile community members. Many of my community members are already buying, their copies and they're enjoying it. So and if we have people here watching that are looking to buy this book or get a copy of this book, so how can they get one?
The easiest way, I mean, it's on Amazon. There's a paper, you can get paper, Kindle, or I actually did an audiobook. Not, I didn't record it. I had a friend of mine record it
Yeah.
who has a much better voice than I do. And he recorded it. He's a voice actor. And it came out maybe a month or two ago. So you can get it on Audible as well. There's another place, if you're just interested in e-copies, you can go to LeanPub and you can get e-copies, Kindle, but also Apple versions on LeanPub. So you can get it in those two places.
Amazing. Okay, that's great. So, Bob, it's been an amazing almost 1 hour with you. So, I would just like to give the opportunity for our audience questions to be answered. So, I'm just going to run through some of these questions here, and we'll be glad to hear your thoughts on them. So,
Sure.
what is, oh, you already mentioned the name, the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. I think that's the question because the person is asking
Yeah.
what is the name of that growth wheel. So
Yep.
again, if you go to Scrum Alliance, that is where I got mine. You should be
Yep.
able to find it there. All right. And then the next question from Matthew Specker. Why Scrum Masters often get paid more than developers? Bob.
I don't know. So I'm not going to disagree with you, Mattis. I don't see pay scales so much anymore. When I'm coaching or
Mhm,
consulting with an organization, I try to talk to them about pay equity. So I'm actually coaching to have equitable pay between the roles as
mhm,
much as possible. And it's not just developer to scrum master, it's developer to tester, developer to BA, developer to UX, um, what else? Project manager. I don't care. It's
mhm,
be as fair minded in the teams as you can. If we want a cross functional, self directed, accountable, empowered team, then I think the more we have transparency and pay equity, the better off we are. Is just my is what I
mhm.
try to influence. I don't know why, in your instance, why Scrum Masters could get than developers. I don't know. Um, it's really a question for your leadership in your organization and maybe to peel the onion a little bit.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Then the next question here, is there any recommended community of practice for Scrum Masters, for practicing Scrum Masters?
I mean, there's a group that I know, Scrum Masters of the Universe is one, which
Mhm,
is a meetup group, and they have it's a global group. They meet monthly. It's a meetup group, and I know that they have a lot of speakers that come in, but I know that they also have a Slack, and they do a lot of collaboration amongst themselves. But I don't think they're the only one. I think
mhm,
some of the meetup groups, for example, the Dallas Agile meetup group, I think has a coaching, like a subgroup,
mhm.
which is inclusive of Scrum Masters. What I would say, Heidi, is just look in your local area. But I would be curious about Scrum Masters of the Universe. If you just search for that on Meetup, you'll find that group. And it's a free to join. So I would say join. I've actually done 2 Ask Me Anything sessions there, and I'm
Wow,
probably going to do a third. And they record all of the stuff.
wow,
So you can actually go back and look at the recordings.
that's awesome. There is one that I'm also familiar with. It's called Agile in Color. So
Oh
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
use,
yeah.
yes. So you can do
That
that. I
that's
just recently tried.
affiliated That's affiliated everyone with Agile Alliance. So
Yes.
Agile in Color is
Mhm.
a group that's sponsored by the Agile Alliance if you go to their website.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then you also have Being Agile community right here on YouTube where you can collaborate and learn and share ideas. So I think that would be it for all the questions we have in here. So, Bob, I cannot thank you enough. It's been an amazing 1 hour with you. And I am very sure, just the same as I've really gotten value and I've learned a lot from this session. Our viewers, I see 65 people watching right now. They should also have gotten some value from it. So thank you so very much. So my last question for you would be, if people want to connect with you, how can they reach you?
So the easiest way, good question, and thank you for including me. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Uh, it's I have a company website, but I also have an alter ego.
Mhm.
It's a place where it's my soapbox, and I call it Agile Moose. Moose is in the large animal. So, and you're from Minnesota, so you know of moose. So it's
Definitely.
agile-moose.com is a place where I post there about diversity and inclusion initiatives I have. I post there about fighting hate. I post there about coaching. We have something called the Moose Herd,
Mhm.
HERD, which is a lean coffee that I sponsor that happens twice a week. That could actually be a place to learn, to sharpen your Scrum Master skills, as we were talking about earlier. So Agile Moose. visit Agile Moose and look around and then connect with me.
Amazing. That's it right there on the screen, team. So I think that is the end of our session today. Again, Bob, I'm so thankful that you
Nope,
make it here.
my
And
pleasure.
I hope to connect with you another time. Have a wonderful day. And the rest of you all, please have a wonderful day as well.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
You're welcome.